Hello guys, this is Daniel. I'm here to do the walk around inspection. We're gonna go ahead and start off with a bus walk around, Cdl walk around inspection. Here we go. Alright guys, we're gonna go ahead and start off with our clearance lights. Our clearance lights are these. Hold on. The clearance lights are right here up at the top of the vehicle. Make sure that they're the proper color, which is amber. Make sure that they function correctly and make sure they're not broken. From there, we're gonna go ahead and move over to our lights. This is the front of the vehicle. We're gonna go ahead and check our loading lights, which are these right here. They should be amber in color. We have two, one on each side of the vehicle, and then we have our stop lights, which are these and these. The loading lights should be amber in color, not cracked, and they must function correctly, as well as for the stop lights. They should be red in color, function correctly, and they shouldn't be cracked. From there, guys, we're gonna go ahead and move to our turn signals, which is this one and this one right here. The turn signals should be proper color, which is amber. They should not be broken, and they should be they should function correctly. Those are actually also your hazard lights. Okay, from there we're going to go ahead and move to our lights. We have low beam right here on the outside, and then we have high beam in the inside right here, guys. The high beam must be the lights, the headlights must function correctly. They must be clear in color, and they shouldn't be broken. From there, we're going to go ahead and look at the license plate, make sure the license plate is properly mounted. No visual damage, must be clean and not cracked or bent. From there, we're going to go ahead and look underneath the vehicle right here, underneath the steering column. We're going to go ahead and look for any leaks greater than the size of your hand, indicating that there's a major leak. From there, guys, we're going to go ahead and move to our side of the vehicle. The side of the vehicle also talks about steering components. Our steering components would be located right here. The steering column would be located from the steering wheel. The steering column comes down. So on the steering column, what we're going to go ahead and check is make sure that the steering column is properly mounted, not cracked or bent, and no more than 2 inches of play. No more than 2 inches of play or 10 degrees. From there, we're going to go ahead and check our gearbox. The gearbox must be properly mounted, no leaks and no visual damage, no missing parts or bolts. From there, we're going to go and go to our pitman arm. Our pitman arm will be cracked or bent, and then it's connected to a castle nut and a cotter pin that also connects to the drag link. The drag link shouldn't be cracked or bent either, and it also connects to our this is our drag link right here. The drag link connects to the steering knuckle, which is right here. The steering knuckle shouldn't be cracked or bent either, and it's also connected by a castle nut and a cotter pin. Okay. From there, we also have a tie rod. The tie rod is actually located back here, right there. That would be our tie rod. Make sure that the tie rod is properly mounted and not cracked or bent, and it has 2 castle nuts, one on each end, on the tie rod ends, a castle nut and a cotter pin as well. From there, guys, we're going to go to our steering axle. The steering axle consists of our suspension. Let me go ahead and go right here. The steering axle is the suspension, the brakes, and the tires. So we're going to go ahead and go to our suspension. The suspension would be, this is our frame. Make sure that the frame is not cracked or bent, and no holes and no illegal welds. From there, the same way we check the suspension on this side of the vehicle is the exact same way we're going to check the suspension on the other side of the vehicle. The same thing goes for the braking system and the tire system on the steering axle components. So here we go. The frame, we've already checked that. We have the lift spring mounts. They shouldn't be cracked or bent, and no visual damage. From there, we have the lift springs. The lift springs should be properly mounted, not cracked or bent, and no visual damage. From there, we're going to have 2 U-bolts, which are located right here. 1 U-bolt, and the other one's located back here. They should be properly mounted, not loose, not cracked, and no missing nuts at the bottom. From there, we have our steering axle. The steering axle is actually this one right here. The steering axle shouldn't be cracked or bent, and no visual damage. Then we also have the shock absorbers, which is one right here and one located back here. So we have 2 shock absorbers, 2 on each side of the vehicle. Make sure that they're properly mounted, and make sure they don't have any leaks on them as well. That concludes our suspension system. Okay. So now what we're going to go ahead and move into is our braking system. The braking system consists of a few things. We're going to go ahead and go into them. We're going to go ahead and start off with a high pressure air hose. This is a high pressure air hose. We know that because of the couplings that it has at the ends. The high pressure hose is connected to our brake chamber, which is located right here. On the high pressure hose, we're going to go ahead and check that it's properly mounted, that it doesn't have any leaks, and no visual damage and no cuts or frayed. From there, it connects to the brake chamber. The brake chamber should be properly mounted, no leaks, no missing parts or bolts, and no visual damage. From there, we're going to go ahead and go to our push rod. The push rod is located right in here. The push rod is should be properly mounted, and no more than 1 inch away. Brakes are released. From there, we're going to go ahead and go to the U-joint. The U-joint should be properly mounted, not cracked or bent or broken, and no visual damage. From there, we have a clevis pin with a cotter pin. So this would be a clevis pin and a cotter pin. Make sure that they're both properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and no visual damage. From there, we have our slack adjuster. This would be our slack adjuster right here. The slack adjuster should be properly mounted, not cracked or bent, and it should be properly greased. This is our slack adjusting nut as well. From there, guys, we're going to go ahead and go around this side. This side we can see right here. This right here would be our S-cam. The S-cam actually runs through this pipe right here into our braking system. The S-cam comes in contact with the brake pads. The brake pads will be right here. This would be our brake pads right here. The brake pads should be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and no visual damage. The brake pad shouldn't be less than 1/4 of an inch in thickness. From there, we're going to go ahead and go to our brake drum. This would be our brake drum. Should be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and no illegal welds. And you shouldn't have no more than no contaminants or debris that could start a fire with the friction of the brakes. From there, guys, that concludes our braking system. Now what we're going to go ahead and move over to is we're going to go ahead and move over to our tire system. The tire system would be located right out here. Okay, the tire system would be located right out here. From the tire, we're going to go ahead and go to our oil hub reservoir. This would be an oil hub reservoir. Make sure that it's properly mounted. No missing parts or bolts. No leaks. And the fluid level should be above the refill level. How do you check the fluid level? You remove this cap and you check by inserting your finger or something to check the oil level inside the oil hub reservoir. From there, we're going to go ahead and go to our lug nuts. Our lug nuts should be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing, and no rust or metal shavings indicating that the lug nuts are loose. From there, we're also going to go to our rim. The rim, we're going to go ahead and check that it's not cracked or bent, and no illegal welds. From there, we're also going to check the valve stem. The valve stem is located right down here. The valve stem is located right down there. Make sure that the valve stem is properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and no visual damage. From there, we're also going to go ahead and check to make sure that the tire is in good condition. We're going to check the tire from the outside as well as from the inside. So on both sides of the tire, what we're looking for on the walls, we're making sure that there's no bubbles and no cuts and no visual damage on the walls of the tire. From there, we're going to go ahead and go to the top of the tire. We're going to go ahead and check the tire depth. The tire depth should be more than 432s or more, and then the tire pressure should be at 105 pounds of pressure, and the tire should be evenly worn and no visual damage on the tire. From there, that concludes our tire system, guys. From there, we're going to go ahead and move to the side of the vehicle, guys. The side of the vehicle, we're going to go ahead and illuminate the whole vehicle. We're going to go ahead and go to this right here is our electrical box. Make sure the electrical box is properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and fully engaged in the lock position. We have our stop arm. Make sure that the stop arm opens and closes correctly. Make sure that it's fully functional. Make sure that the lights turn on and off simultaneously. And from there, we're going to go ahead and check our windows. We're going to go ahead and check all the windows on the bus, that they should be not cracked and not missing, and no visual damage on the windows. Our emergency exits must be properly illuminated with reflective tape. From there, also make sure that our emergency exit door is fully engaged in the lock position. Make sure that the hinges are properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and no visual damage. From there, as we're on the side of the vehicle, we can also check to make sure that the air tanks are located actually right down here. If we come down here, we can actually see the air tank, and it is right there. Make sure the air tank is properly mounted. We have one on this side, one on the passenger side. Our secondary, so primary air tank would be located right here. Secondary would be on the other side of the vehicle. Make sure they're not cracked, bent, or broken, and no visual damage. From there, we're going to go ahead and move to our side of the bus. The side of the bus, where we're going to go ahead and check all the lights around the vehicle. The lights and reflectors from here all the way around the front of the vehicle, all the way to the other side, should be absolute color. Not cracked, not bent, not broken. From there, we're going to go ahead and check our side compartment, which is here. What are we checking for is make sure that it opens and closes properly. Make sure there's no visual damage. Make sure that we check our frame. The frame should be not cracked, bent, no holes, and no illegal welds. As you can tell, this would be our frame. And then we have our cross members, which are these right here. Make sure that they're not cracked, bent, or broken, and no visual damage on our cross members. From there, we're going to go ahead and see our floorboard. Our floorboard is actually right up here. Make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken, and no visual damage on the floorboard. The electrical lines, the electrical wiring must be fully engaged, like fully functional, and no visual damage on the electrical lines. Make sure our floorboard, also here on our storage compartment, make sure it's properly mounted, that it's not cracked, bent, broken, or missing, and no visual damage as well. We're going to go ahead and close the side compartment. Make sure that the door opens and closes properly, and it fully locks in the lock position. From there, we're going to go ahead and go to our drive axle. The suspension, the braking system is the exact same thing as we have on the front suspension, on the steering axle. This would be our drive axle. The only thing that changes is the spacing between the tires. Here we have 2 tires on this side of the vehicle, and on the other side we have 2 tires as well. So we have 4 tires back here. The spacing between the tires is called bud spacing. Make sure that there's no rocks or sticks or any kind of debris between the tires. From there, we're also going to go ahead and check on the tire right here. This is called a axle seal. Make sure that it's not cracked or bent, and no leaks, and no missing parts and bolts. From there, we're going to go ahead and check both rims, the outside rim and the inside rim. Make sure that they're both not cracked, bent, no illegal welds. Then we have 2 valve stems. We have one located in here, and then we have one located right here. Make sure that the valve stems are properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and no visual damage. They must have the cap present. From there, we're also going to go ahead and check the lug nuts. Make sure they're not cracked, bent, or broken, no visual damage. And metal shavings or rust indicating that the nuts are loose. They're also going to check the tires. We're going to check all these 4 tires the exact same thing. The same thing goes for the tire that goes on the inside. The way we check this side of the tire is the same way we check the other side. Now the same way I'm checking the tires on this side is the exact same way I'm going to check the ones on that side. The wall, we would check for any bubbles or cuts and any visual damage on the walls. From there, we would also go to the top. The top of the tire and the drive tires should be at least 232s in depth, and on both tires, they must be evenly worn. And also, the tire pressure should not exceed 105 pounds of pressure. From there, we're going to go ahead and see if we've already talked about our suspension system and our braking system. Another thing that we want to look into is that we have our drive shaft. As you guys can see right here, this is our drive shaft. The drive shaft, make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken, and no visual damage. This is our drive axle, so make sure that our drive axle, the difference on the suspension here is that we have airbags for the suspension. mentioned, the airbags on the drive axle. Now, we also have on this drive axle, we have a differential. The differential is connected to the drive shaft. That's what turns our wheels. Make sure that the differential is not cracked or bent, and make sure it doesn't have any leaks and no visual damage on the differential. It should also have no missing parts or bolts. From there, these are our mud flaps. The mud flap shouldn't be no more than 8 inches off the ground and no visual damage. From there, we're going to go to our battery box. The battery box is located right here. Make sure that the battery box is opens and closes properly. Make sure it fully engages in the lock position. Make sure the batteries are properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, no leaks. And the electrical wiring should be properly mounted, no missing parts or bolts, and no visual damage as well. The lights and reflectors around the back of the vehicle, they're all going to be red in color. Make sure that they're properly mounted, that they're not cracked, bent, or broken, and that they're not missing, and no visual damage. As we check the back of the vehicle, we're going to go ahead and check again. We have our loading lights. They should be red in color again. We have the stop lights, which are red in color as well, and we have our loading lights. The lights, we can go ahead and make sure that the lights are proper color, which are amber, red. I'm sorry, the stop light should be red, the loading light should be amber, the clearance light should be red as well in the back of the vehicle. From there, we're going to go ahead and go into our engine compartment. The engine compartment, guys, we're going to go ahead and start from the left and work our way down to the right. So what we're going to go ahead and look for is, this is our AC compressor. It should be properly mounted, no missing parts or bolts. Make sure it doesn't have any leaks, and no visual damage on it. It's belt driven, so the belt, what we're going to inspect is to make sure that the belt is in good working condition. Make sure it's not frayed, no cuts, and no visual damage on the belt. No more than 3/4 of an inch in play when on the belt. From there, we're going to go ahead and check the electrical on the AC compressor. Make sure that they're properly mounted, that they're not cracked, not frayed, no visual damage on the electrical wiring on the AC compressor. From there, guys, we're going to go ahead and come out this way. We have our transmission oil dipstick, and we also have our engine oil dipstick, which are located right here. So on both of them, what we're going to be checking is to make sure that they're both properly mounted, that they're not cracked, bent, or broken, and no visual damage. And you must read the oil levels on the transmission and on the engine dipstick, and they must be filled above the refill level. All right, from there, we're going to go ahead and go into our engine compartment, which is right here. We have our starter. The starter should be properly mounted, not cracked or bent, and it's gear driven and no visual damage. The electrical line should be properly mounted, not frayed, and no visual damage as well. From there, we're going to go to our alternator. Our alternator is belt driven as well. So we already inspected the belt on the AC compressor the exact same way we inspected this one, the exact same way we did the alternator charges our battery. So what we're going to go ahead and check is to make sure that it's properly mounted, that it's not cracked, bent, or broken, and no visual damage. Make sure that it's not missing any parts or bolts. From there, we're also going to check the electrical lines. The electrical lines should be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and no missing parts or bolts. From there, we're going to go ahead and go to our water pump. The water pump is located right here. The water pump should be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and no visual damage. From there, we're going to go ahead and go to our and it shouldn't have any leaks as well. From there, we will go to our air compressor. The air compressor is air for our air tank, so it should be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and it's also gear driven. One of the things I forgot to mention is that the water pump is belt driven. Back at the AC, the air compressor. The air compressor should be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, broken, no leaks, no missing parts or bolts, and no visual damage. From there, we're also going to check the air hoses. Make sure that the air hoses are properly mounted, not cracked, bent, broken, no leaks, not frayed, and no visual damage on the hoses. From there, we're also going to go ahead and check our power steering fluid reservoir. Make sure that power steering fluid reservoir is properly mounted, that it doesn't have any leaks. Make sure that the sight glass is that the fluid level is above the refill line. Make sure that the cap is properly mounted, not cracked, bent, broken, or missing, and no visual damage. From there, we're also going to go in and check our fan. Our fan should be, the blade shouldn't be cracked, bent, or broken, and not missing, and no visual damage on the belts. From there, we're also going to go ahead and check our fan guard. The fan guard should be properly mounted, not cracked, bent, broken, or missing, and no visual damage. From there, we have a radiator. The radiator should be properly mounted, no leaks, no cracked, bent, broken, missing, and no visual damage. The radiator has hoses, so the hoses shouldn't be frayed, no cuts, and no leaks, and no visual damage. The radiator also has a radiator stabilizer arm. Make sure that the radiator stabilizer arm is properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and not missing. From there, we also have our water coolant reservoir. The water coolant reservoir must be filled above the refill level. So you can check it through the side glass. Make sure that it's not cracked, bent, or broken, and no leaks. The cap must be present, and you shouldn't have any visual damage on the hoses. The hoses shouldn't be cracked, frayed, or any leaks on them as well. From there, we're going to go ahead and move over to the passenger side of the vehicle. We've already talked about this side of the vehicle. We're going to go ahead and go to our fuel area. This would be our fuel area, our fuel door. Make sure it opens and closes correctly. Make sure that the fuel tank is properly mounted, that it's not cracked, bent, or broken, and no visual damage. Also, make sure we check the cap to make sure it's present, that it's not cracked, bent, broken, or missing, and no visual damage on the cap. From there, we're also going to go ahead and look underneath the vehicle. Make sure that there's no leaks greater than the size of your hand, indicating that there's any leaks on your fuel tank. From there, we're going to go ahead and close it. We're going to go ahead and go to our driver door. The driver door, what we're looking is to make sure that the door opens and closes correctly. Make sure there's no visual damage. Make sure that the glass is properly mounted and shouldn't have any cracks and no illegal stickers. From there, we're going to go ahead and go inside the vehicle. Inside the vehicle, what we're looking for is we're going to go ahead and check the steps. Make sure that the steps are properly mounted, not cracked, bent, broken, or missing, and no visual damage on the steps. Make sure we check out our assist handle. Make sure it's properly mounted, not cracked, bent, broken, or missing, and no visual damage on the assist handle. We're also going to go ahead and check our loading light. Loading light should be right here. Should be clear in color. Should be functioning correctly, not cracked, bent, broken, or missing, and no visual damage on that light. From there, we're going to go ahead and enter our vehicle. When we're here, we're going to go ahead and check. This is our standing line. This is our standing line. Make sure our standing line is from here back on the row. Make sure that all the row that the aisle is clean, that it doesn't have any obstructions by any backpacks or students sticking out their feet or anything like that. From there, we're also checking to make sure that the seat cushions are properly mounted in the right position, that they're not cracked, that they're not ripped, and there's no visual damage on the seats. From there, we're also going to go ahead and check the emergency exits. We have an emergency door, emergency latch up at the top of the vehicle, and we have two emergency exits, one on the left and one on the right of the vehicle, driver's side and passenger side. Make sure that they're properly mounted, that they're properly engaged in the lock position. There's no visual damage on any of the emergency exits. From there, guys, when we come back towards the front of the vehicle, we're going to go ahead and look at the back seats of the vehicle. Make sure that the seats are in good condition. Make sure that there's no visual damage on the back of the seats of the vehicles. You don't want to see any rips or tears on the back of the vehicle. From there, guys, we're going to go ahead and check the emergency exit door. The aisle must be clean, no obstructions, and no visual damage on the aisle, guys. Make sure that the door is fully engaged in the lock position, which is right there. And make sure you check your other exits. You're going to go ahead and check the top exit. You're going to go ahead and check your window exits right here and right here. When we go ahead and check our exits, make sure that they're fully engaged in the lock position. Make sure that they're not open and that there's no obstructions, so the students can use the exits in case of an emergency. From there, we're going to go ahead and come to our front of the vehicle. We're going to go ahead and come to our seat. Well, we're going to go ahead and check on our seat. Make sure that it's properly mounted to the floorboard. Make sure it's not cracked, bent, broken, no missing parts or bolts on the seat. And make sure it's fully attached. From there, we're also going to go ahead and check the condition of our seatbelt. The condition of our seatbelt, make sure that the seatbelt is not frayed. not cracked, not frayed, not ripped, and must function correctly. In other words, it should lock in place correctly, and no visual damage on the mechanism for putting on our seatbelt. From there, we're going to go ahead and sit down in our driver's seat. We're going to go ahead and check out our gauges. Our gauges are located right here. We have our speedometer. This one tells us how fast we're traveling. Then we have our fuel gauge. Make sure the fuel gauge is the fuel level is at proper fill level. Then we have our oil pressure. The air pressure should be between normal pressure between 120 and 140. And then from there, we're gonna go. We have two lines, as you can see in there. We have a yellow one and an orange one. I don't know if you guys can see it. There you go. You can see a little bit better right there. Make sure that the lines are above 120 to 140, and the white line is for the primary air tank. The red one is for the secondary air tank. From there, we're gonna go ahead and go to our RPM. Make sure that the RPM is working correctly. Then we have our gear shift. If we go up, right now it's in the neutral position. Make sure that if it's always in the neutral position, and the parking brake is set on park. If we go up, it's reverse. Down is drive, and then you have 3 and 2 and 1. From there, we're gonna go ahead and go to our water temperature. The water temperature should not exceed 210 degrees. Then we have our battery voltmeter. The voltmeter should be between 12 and 14 volts. So the alternator should be charging between 12 and 14 volts. From there, we're going to go ahead and go to our oil PSI. The oil PSI should be should not drop less than 20 PSI. So the oil pressure should not be less than 20 PSI. From there, we're going to go ahead and turn on the vehicle. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and practice a safe start. The way we do that is we're going to go ahead and make sure that our vehicle is in neutral. We're going to go ahead and make sure that our vehicle, that our parking brake is set. So we're going to go ahead and pull to apply the parking brake. And we're going to go ahead and press the brake pedal. We're going to go ahead and start the vehicle. All right. We go ahead and start and slowly release the brake. And that concludes our safe start. On the safe start, what we're going to go ahead and check, we're going to go ahead and check our light indicators, which is our left turn signal. Left turn signal, which is that one. And now we're going to check our right turn signal. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and check our high beam and low beam. That right there, make sure you turn it on right here at the front of the bus. We have our low beam right there, and then if we pull this handle, the handle right here, right next to the steering wheel for our turn signals, we pull it towards you and the light will come on. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it towards me several times. That's where the high beams and low beams. Again, high beams, the light turns on. Low beams, the light turns off. When you're fully done with checking the high beam and low beam, make sure you turn off your lights by pressing this button in. From there, we're going to go ahead and check to make sure our heater and our defrost works the way that check that by pressing this button. We're going to go ahead and press the button on, and as you can hear the heater and the defrost kick in. Make sure you can hear it. After you can hear that, we're going to go ahead and turn it off, and then we're going to go ahead and check our stop arm as well. These are our loading lights. So as you can see right there, their loading lights should be flashing up at the front of the vehicle, and then we have our stop light. The stop light and the stop arm will be controlled by this, the stop light and the stop arms should be controlled by this button right here. When you press it in, it goes ahead and it opens the stop arm, and that concludes the in-cab inspection, guys. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. If you have any questions, please leave a comment, guys. I will answer your questions when you get to the video. If you comment through this video, I can answer your question right away. So remember, leave a comment and I will help you out. If you have any questions, remember, leave a comment and I'll try and help you guys out. Thank you so much, and Stay tuned for future videos. Remember to subscribe and hit that like button.